Hello and welcome back to the channel. It's been a while since I've done a sit down and get angry video. However, today I'm going to do that because I'm getting well and truly naffed off with this industry. They are making it impossible to sell cars. Old cars have all got problems and they're rotting away. Very old cars have all been scrapped in the scrappage schemes. And then the newer ones inherently got a load of technical issues and loads of problems and recalls and everything that goes with it. So it's pretty much impossible to sell them as well. So I'm starting to get a bit wound up and I wanted to get your feedback on it really and just see whether or not I'm being a little bit sensitive, which I'm known for being for sometimes, especially when people in the comments call me fat guy. Still hurting about that. Anyway, good morning, good afternoon and good evening. Today's video is sponsored by absolutely nobody. It's purely going to be about how I'm getting wound up with this situation. So I want to talk about recalls on cars. Last year, I started moving more towards newer cars if I could do, to try and get them sort of either just out of warranty or in warranty if possible, but I struggle to sell cars that are under 3 years old because I'm competing with main dealers that have got big shiny showrooms and lots of sales force with their shiny polished shoes, and I can't compete with that. So I tend to sell cars that are sort of between 5 to 10 years old is my sweet spot. Now what I'm seeing more and more of are recalls, and I've had a problem this week with a car that I've sold that had a recall on it, and it's caused me more headaches by doing the right thing and having the recall done than if I'd have just left it. I'm going to talk you through what's gone wrong with the Volvo XC90 that I've sold to a lovely bloke in Wales. Really nice guy who is actually fortunately been really understanding. So basically, the law states, from what I can read, and I'm reading something from Logistics at the moment, which is basically the legal team that we use to represent us, as and when we've got problems, which is becoming more and more regular. And basically what they've said is it can be an offence to sell a car with an outstanding recall, and it's very much dependent on what that recall is. So if it's safety related, that tends to be a problem. So we're seeing loads and loads of recalls with BMW and Mercedes. BMW predominantly seems to be EGR valves, which is the recall, which isn't a safety related recall. And then Mercedes, there's a lot of stuff to do with the airbag, which is a little bit more ominous. So we tend to tackle that if we can do. So basically the legal representatives, what they're saying is if a car has got a recall on, which is safety related, so it could cause injury or even death to a customer, that is a problem to sell. And I kind of agree with that. That's fine. Not got a problem with that. Because what they're basically saying is, for example, we sold a Mercedes E-Class last year. Sold it twice actually. Sold it to a mate who ran it for a few months and then sold it to a customer. And when it came back, we did a check on it, had a recall for the airbag, spoke to the legal team about it, and they basically said, look, the problem is, Rob, if that customer has an accident in the car and the airbag doesn't go off and you were shown to be selling it knowing it had a recall and not doing anything about it, this can be a little bit of a problem. So anything that's safety related, we attack. Another example would be an X5 that we sold not too long ago, had a recall on for the EGR valve, explained it to the customer. It was a 6-week waiting list for the EGR valve to be sorted. And they basically just said, look, we're not bothered. I spoke to BMW, they said it's not a safety recall and they're fine to carry on driving the car. Got it all in writing. Everyone's fine. So that's not a problem. However, we've had a big issue with Volvo. So, sold an XC90 to a guy down in Wales. And in the time it took us from doing the deal to getting the car prepared and ready to leave our dealership, we checked online and it had a recall showing. I spoke to Volvo and they said, there's just a small chance, only a small chance, but it might set on fire. But don't be overly concerned about it. But obviously it's a safety recall. Now I spoke to the customer about it, explained it to them. They went, yeah, look, we're not in a rush to get the car, so if you can get it sorted, get it sorted. So I took it to Volvo, and I must say that the car was absolutely fine without issue. Took it to Volvo, and they said, right, we'll attack it. What we basically need to do is check the battery cells on the hybrid and make sure that it's not going to self-combust. So they left car for a day, got everything drained down, did the check the following day, and unfortunately, this car did need the battery work doing. So they sorted it. It was in there for a couple of days, customer's very happy, and I went to go and pick up the car. Now, I'm not going to mention the specific dealership that did the work because I kind of don't think it's their fault. I think stuff just goes wrong. Everyone's all trying to learn on the spot about these updates and what we're meant to be doing. So, and they've dealt with the situation really well, which I'm going to explain because it's caused me a massive headache and the customer a headache. But basically, when I went to go and pick up the car, it's all been done, it's all sorted, it's been road tested, it's not a problem. I got in the car and drove it not 300 yards down the road and the dashboard lit up with hybrid system fault, seek assistance immediately. So I took it straight back. I basically drove it through the showroom doors. It wasn't quite that extreme, but I was pretty upset about it. I went in, they got a mechanic on it straight away. All credits them. Normally when you deal with a main dealer, it can be difficult, and we'll have to book it in through the process, so they're really helpful. Now what he basically said was, we just needed to bleed some air out of the line or something like that, and this is where hybrid technology, I just do not understand it at all. I don't understand cars at the best of time. Anyway, he gave me the keys back, said, "You sorted, you're good to go." I drove it back to the unit, not a problem at all. I then drove it around the block a few times just to be sure, because I was now a little bit uncertain in my head, and it was fine. So we told the customer the car is done, come on up. So he's come on up from Wales. It's taken them 4.5 hours to get here from Cardiff. Looked at the car, fine with it. I told him about the recall work, what had been done, got an email, everything being proved, etc. So he was a happy bunny, and we took it out for a thorough road test. So we always road test our cars for at least 15 to 20 minutes. It was fine, not a problem. So we did the deal, the guy took the car away. Now, to give this customer his credit, he dropped me a text on Monday, we sold the car on the Saturday, saying, "A bit of a problem, Rob, I didn't want to text you at the weekend," which I massively respect because there's nothing I can do about it. And he sent me a picture of this warning light that was up on the dashboard. And it's the same warning light that it came up with when I took it away from Volvo, when I had it sorted the first time. So the first thing that I've done is rung the dealership back. They've said, "Look, I'm going to have to speak to a manager. I don't know what to do about this, and we're going to try and get it sorted." So basically the long and short of it is, the guy now has to take the Volvo to a place in Cardiff, a Volvo dealership, and the Volvo dealership that I took it to in the first place are now going to try and liaise and sort it out between the two of us. The thing that's really annoyed me about this whole situation is the car was fine before it went in for its recall. There was no issues. I drove it home a couple of times that I normally do anyway. No problem at all. Bought it from somebody that I know. There were no issues. It then goes in for its recall and it comes back to me with problems. Back in, fixed, comes back to me, no problem, sell it to a customer. The customer's now got a problem. Now, the issue from a car dealer's point of view is that when something goes wrong with the car, especially in the first 30 days, you are really vulnerable to what you can do and what you can't do and what you need to say and what you don't say and what opportunities the customer needs to get to refund and all that. So basically, I rung the customer back and I just said, "Look, first of all, the first thing I'd like to say on this situation is you can get a full refund if you want a full refund. I appreciate that it's a bit of a pain for you, and I'm really sorry, and it's not my fault. It's not your fault. I don't think it's Volvo's fault. But the situation as it stands is you've bought a car from me and it's gone wrong straight away, regardless of what the problems are." So the first thing I said to him was, "You can have your money back. So bring the car back, full refund, no questions asked. It's not a problem at all." And I think that's the right thing to do, to immediately put the customer in a position where they feel like you're not trying to fleece them and they bought a lemon. Anyway, the guy is sound. And he said, "Look, don't want that. I just want the car fixed in." So he's going to take it to Volvo and get it fixed. Now, the problem that I've got niggling in my head is if Volvo don't get this right again, he's going to want his money back, isn't he? And I can't blame him for it. The problem for my mind is that this is where the job is just becoming impossible, because I cannot sell that car with a safety recall, and rightly so. The safety recall needs doing, it gets done, it doesn't get done properly. The customer ends up buying a car that he now believes has got a problem, so he can ask for a refund. So it's just getting harder and harder, this job. I kind of don't know the right thing to do, and I almost feel like the sweet spot of cars is probably 10 to 15 years old. There's no recall-y stuff, or any recall-y stuff's been done. There's no sort of techie stuff. Is that the sweet spot? Because the problem that we've got is that manufacturing defects and faults, we are held liable and accountable for as a second-hand car dealer, and actually we didn't build it. I'm going to tell you a little story about a guy that retailed a car. It was a Range Rover Vogue, and he sold it to a bloke, and this is bad. Sold it to a bloke who turns out, I think he worked in law, and this was during the COVID situation, pandemic. Sold him this Range Rover Vogue. It was £100,000. The guy bought it. It was from a distance, all the usual stuff that went with it, and basically ended up doing, I want to say it was like 30,000 miles in this car in a year, or it might even have been 50. It was a ludicrous amount of mileage. Anyway, whilst he's owning the car, it kept on coming up with a coolant light warning. And they kept on going in and out of the main dealer to try and get it sorted. Now, the main dealer was addressing this situation because the car was still in main dealer warranty. So as far as the dealer that sold it's concerned, he's just like, look, take it to the main dealer, they'll sort it, we'll sort the administration out, but we'll sort it for you. He went back and forth, and they could not rectify this problem. Now, it turns out after months and months of digging and loads of back and forth and a rather disgruntled customer, that the issue with the car was where the coolant runs round the coolant lines and the channels, etc., in the engine block, there was like a little nib just in front of the sensor. So like a bit of metal or an undulation or whatever. And what it was causing the coolant to do was to tumble over the sensor, which was creating kind of bubbles and tumulation. I don't know, insert proper word here. And as a result of which, what it was doing is it was telling the sensor that there's no coolant, but there was coolant. So they're there replacing sensors and doing coolant flushes and all this sort of stuff. But actually the problem wasn't that. It was part of the engine block. So the next solution was going to be a new engine. Now, because this customer had bought it from a second-hand car dealer, basically what he did was, using his consumer rights, was said, well, that fault was there at time of sale, and I can prove that the fault was there at time of sale. So the dealer had to give him a full refund on the car, even though it was under manufacturer's warranty. The manufacturer was fully happy to put a new engine in. There was no issue with that at all. But the customers basically said, well, I can prove it's there at point of sale, and due to my rights, I can just stick it back into you for a full refund. Now, as far as I'm aware, I don't even believe that the dealer got a mileage allowance on this. I think it was just wedged well and truly back in his backside. So the dealer then got it fixed, relisted it for sale at significant losses, and the customer then went online and started to pull him apart and throw all these different accusations at him and basically just rip him apart online as well. Now, from what I hear, the dealer then took him to court for that and managed to sue him, but that's a story for another day. So the point of the video really is just to ask what you think I should be doing here, because I can't sell new cars. I can't sell cars that are nearly new. I can't sell cars that are really old because they're just broken. I can't sell cars that are super old because they are obsolete now because of the scrappage scheme. So you kind of end in this weird spot where you don't really know what you can and can't be selling. It's just, you think you're getting somewhere. We're actually on for an all right month this month for the first time in what feels like forever. I feel like I'm on an okay month, and then you get something like that and you think, if that deal ends up blobbing, it's going to put us back to maybe just wiping our face again. I feel better for that therapy session, thank you. What would you be doing in this situation? It'd be great to hear from you. In the meantime, I have bought something really, really stupid today. It's a 1997 car. It has done 60,000 miles, which is really rare. It's 4 owners, which is really rare. They are changing hands for lots of money now, and I've managed to buy it for 10 grand. And there's going to be a video on that coming soon, because I'm going to do a full restoration on this. I'm going to try and do it as cheaply as possible and make as much money as possible, obviously. But I suspect there's going to be a lot of problems coming my way. So, thank you for tuning in. Be great to get some feedback on this and what you think I should be doing about this recall situation. I feel like my hands are tied, and a lot of dealers' hands are tied, and it'd just be great to get your feedback, not only as a dealer, but also as someone who buys cars from dealers. Thanks for hearing me out on that one. Sorry it might have dragged on. See you on the next one. Cheers.